So this is the first tutorial for the Impasto Brush Pack that I've just launched. And before you can do all the cool things that you want to do, like paint with it and play with the 3D smudges, we have to actually learn how to use the brush. Okay, so this is an impasto stamp made with this brush. So if you notice here, it's actually very 3D because it has shadow and it has highlights and the whole thing just looks very real. So the only way to achieve this is to actually have dual color loading. So this brush stamp is actually made with black and white. So I'm actually painting with both colors at the same time. So you see, if I change this to blue and with white here, and I stamp, it's gonna look like this. So let's talk about the naming convention of the brushes. So basically what we're trying to do today is to learn how to use the impasto brushes, right? And all of them are labeled with tick paint. So if you see here, it's all tick paint, tick paint, tick paint, all the way up. Even the dabbers are all impasto brushes, but they are not labeled as tick paint. So basically everything with tick paint, rake, and dabbers, they are all impasto brushes that has this same function. And if you look here at the naming system, you can see that there are like alphabets at the end of the brushes. So there's D and there's L and there's S. Let's talk about something that is very simple. Anything that has an S means that they have a shadow. So for example, if I just paint here, see it has a shadow, a very, very prominent shadow. There we go. Okay, so the most important thing for us to learn today is the dual color loading, and that is accessible with the D and the L. So like what I just told you just now, if we just make a stamp like this with black and white, we are actually modeling the brush in Procreate. So if it is a D, we are going to use the brush with the darker color. So if you see here, this is where we load our colors. And here we have black and white, and this is black. This is the selected color. So if it's D, we always select the darker color here. And the way to select it is you just tap on the swatch. Okay. So make sure that you are either in Classic, Disc, Harmony, or Value, because if you're in palettes, you notice that you can't dual color load here. So I always like to use Classic. So for example, I'm just gonna quickly make a green stamp. So I'm gonna pick green, so I have a green here now. And for the next swatch, I'm gonna pick green again, but I'm gonna make it lighter. And okay, if I'm painting with anything with a D, like this is a D, I'm gonna make sure that I am painting with the dark color. So the dark color is selected here. So you see when I stamp, it looks correct. If you use the wrong one and you stamp, it's gonna be inverted. Make sure you check the brush tag at the end. So now I'm going to try and look for some L. So if it's L, what we want to do is to pick the lighter color. So it's easy, right? D for dark, L for light. So there we go. And if you paint it with the dark one, it's going to be inverted again. So make sure you always use the correct one. Always remember D for dark, L for light. So now that we have explored the dual color loading, it's time to talk about what we are doing today. Basically, in the first tutorial, you're gonna end up with something like this. So this looks easy, but it's not, because what we want to do is to match the color exactly, and it's not as easy as it looks. So we have a guide here in this Procreate project as well. So this guide is actually the color and the grid where you place your stamp in. So you're going to place a stamp within the color and make sure that whatever you stamp in looks like the color. So that's all you are going to have to do today. Okay, to start the tutorial is very simple. So we're going to turn off the sample here. The sample is just an example that we want to create. So let's just pick anyone. Let's just do this lilac one. Okay, so I'm going to pick the color. Just hold here and pick the color, and we have one color already. Okay, now we're going to have to pick the shadow, because this is the main color. So we're gonna have to pick another color for the shadow. So the easiest way to do it is to look at the history, because the history is gonna keep whatever we pick here, and we're gonna pick the same thing here. and we are going to drag it to a darker color. So if you drag it down, okay, I'm just going to do some samples here. Okay, if you drag it down, it's gonna look like this. If you drag it diagonally, it's gonna look like this. And if you change the slider, it's gonna look like this. Okay, now let's talk about what's happening here. So the first one, we drag the slider down and it looks grayed out. It looks very neutral and dull. So this is what you do not want to do. And this is what we did by just dragging diagonally. So this was our original color, right? You look, these two colors are the same. All we did was drag diagonally and it's gonna come out like that, okay? And then the third one, we switched the slider and we pushed the color to a different color. These two are still staying in the same color, while this one is pushing to another color already. So if you want to slightly start to push it into another color for a gradient, this is what you need to do. Okay, now let's talk about contrast. So what we want to do for now is obviously this one, but what if we do it extreme? So this is our original color. Let's make one that is just a little bit. Okay, so this is just a little bit. And then let's make one all the way down. Okay. This is very low in contrast. This is a little bit high in contrast, and this is extremely high in contrast, and you can see the 3D modeling of the brush stem very clearly, like it's super 3D. So when do you use each one? If you think that you're gonna use the most high contrast one every time, think again, because if you use everything that is very high contrast, it's gonna look very cluttered. Okay, so let me show you a sample that I did. So this is a sample that I did previously. This is with very high contrast strokes, and you notice that it looks very cluttered and messy and chaotic. So if we use everything high contrast, it's gonna turn out like that. But if we control them and lower the contrast, this is what it's gonna look. You see, everything is lower contrast, it's more harmonious. For example, this piece is also very low in contrast. You see, it's so low. It's very close to each other. In areas of high contrast, you can see that it adds a lot to the texture. So depending on the situation, you might decide low contrast or high contrast. Like for example, the face, I always stay very low contrast so that you don't take away from the whole face itself. So this piece, this is the high contrast version. You can see it's super noisy here. Everything is very high contrast. You see it's super juicy and super high contrast. But I removed the contrast and it looks like this. The whole piece just comes together better. And today you're gonna have to decide if you want to use high contrast or low contrast. And you can decide if you want to use a more gray color or a more vibrant one. So I think I'm gonna stick with a little bit lower contrast. Okay, I think I like this one. So if you find something that you like, just enlarge the brush size a little bit to fit the square. If it's bigger, it's fine. And then just rotate the stamp and place it here. And then when you place it in the square, you can see if it matches the tone behind. If it doesn't, this is the trick. You pick the color behind and you drop it where you want it to match. So I can see obviously that here is not matching these two parts. So I'm gonna drop it here. Yep. And now it matches, it's like identical. So this is like a shortcut way to do it. But you can't do it if you never like have a good base already. Okay, so now you can pick another stamp. Any stamp, you can work with any stamp. Let's work with something in the light section. So this one. So for the light section, we pick the color first and then tap on the next swatch and tap on the history to get the same color. So now we have the same color and we're gonna find a good shadow color. So the way to use this brush, because it's L, we are painting with the light color. So make sure that this one is the light color. We can make it on a new layer and match it here. Okay. I'm gonna adjust the color a little bit by dropping in. I think this is too light. Yep. This is good. And you can always check by turning off the guide. So you see, you have 2 strokes already. Okay, here's something cool that you can do. So we can make a nice pebble shape. Okay, tap add, and now let's try the rigs. So I have rig here. Let's just try this plaster rig D. So D, we're gonna have to use the darker color. So I'm just gonna quickly pick the color, tap here, tap the history again, and get a vibrant blue. And then let's see. Okay, this is good. So now we are painting and not stamping. You can do any variation of patterns that you like. So let's do another mask one. Alright, pick the color and set the shadow. And then this time, I'm gonna use a D pig paint. So I'm painting with the shadow, paint inside. Or I can just stamp it here. And then keep stamping until I see something that I like. So this is also another method to do it, to constrain it within a shape. Okay, so you can go on and continue for the rest of the squares on your own. So when you're done like this, you can always just look at it and see if there's anything you want to change. So for me, I think I want to match this color a little bit better. So I'm just going to drop this in and this one as well to just get a more accurate gradient overall. And this one is a bit tricky. Yeah, that looks much better. All right. Fantastic. Okay, they are all like super close right now. All right, so once you have something like this, you can just turn off the guide, and there you go. You can see that everything flows to the next color correctly. So this is a very basic technique which you will use very often because you're going to be painting the impasto on top of another painting later on, and you would want the color to match. If everything that you lay on top of your base painting is a different color, different value, vibrancy, it's going to look very messy and cluttered. So this is a very important lesson that you need to learn before you move on to the next tutorial. So I hope that you have fun with this tutorial and this brush pack, and try a lot of experiments, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye!